Yes.
Nailed it.
Hey guys, Thunder E here, and welcome to episode 8 of the weekly. And we have our usual hosts, starting off with the one and only, the man with the smile and the Kango hat, Mr. Juan Bagnell.
What's up, guys? I finally got my camera working, so you'll be able to see me eye roll and stuff. So that'll be exciting.
Cool. Let us know if you can see the live video because I'm looking at it and it's just all black. So
interesting. Here, I'll jump in right now and
I don't know.
Keep going. Keep going with the show.
Yeah. Next up is the man with the cash, the mission, the suit, aka Sam, Black Iron Man.
I have a hoodie and 25 cents in my pocket. Yes.
We're already starting off. That's yeah.
All right. And Mr. Warren Bowman said he might not be able to join, but yeah, he is here with us in spirit. Thank you everyone for joining in the chat. Definitely leave comments. We'll definitely try and check in. Let's start off with the uselessness of the week. This one came straight out of nowhere. Snapchat and Rihanna. Snapchat has lost $800 million in value as of yesterday. They ran an ad this week that said, slap Rihanna or punch Chris Brown.
Yeah, kind of like marry. What's it called? Marry. Oh, kill. Whatever.
Yeah, this one's
kind of like one of those games.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it started, man. It's gonna get
just like that. Only horrifically tasteless.
Exactly.
God. Horrifically tasteless is an understatement. Basically, bringing back one of the worst moments in this woman's life. That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah. And she put them on blast, and stock price took a hit, which is good. It was good to see that reaction, at least from people, and then the market also followed that reaction as well and said, if you're going to play this game, then you're going to face the consequences.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
That's actually very that should be the title of this show. Play stupid games.
Well, apparently this should have been Snapchat's tagline for the entire existence of their company. I can't imagine a service with as many subscribers, as many users, and with as much goodwill that they were able to build up early in their game, falling this hard and being this consistently poor at managing their resources. This is Snapchat is over. Like, Snapchat is done. It's time to move on.
Yeah,
I think it's safe to say Kylie Jenner killed Snapchat. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I would agree. Anyway, any update on video? Can you guys see? Can you watch?
Yeah, I was able to pull it up. I was able to watch it while streaming it, so I don't know if there are other.
Okay, maybe it's just on my end that it's doing this little bugaboo thing. But anyway, yeah. Any more thoughts on that, or do we just want to just move on?
We do have a comment here from Fat Produce. I work in advertising, and Snapchat's offerings have never been appealing. Discoverability has never been good with the UI that they have. And I think their recent changes still have not found much footing with their audience. I see a few defenders every now and then, just like, well, I like this change because of that. And then the vast majority of their user base going, nope. And a ton of people, I think, have migrated over to Instagram because of that.
You're right. I mean, maybe this is the beginning of the end of what I prophesied like a year and a half ago. I said it should die as a company because, we've all said it here before. They do not know. They create a platform that's easily replicated by anyone else. Can do that. Heck, even Google tomorrow can decide to make a Snapchat clone and throw it out there. And
aren't they already? Isn't there an option in the YouTube app to do like a stories style?
Oh, it's coming. Yeah, it's not yet. Yeah, it's in beta, right? But that's coming also. so yeah. And then again, they don't have a good advertising platform, as Fat Produce mentioned. There's no way to build an audience. There's no way to even maintain an audience for any kind of social media. So, you know what? They should just go. And yeah. Anyway, moving on to other things that are a little scary. China will be banning people with poor social credits from flights. So China has been undertaking this social platform where they want to reward and punish people for doing things in the social environment. And they're taking to the next level where some of these rewards and some of the punishments involve flight restrictions and maybe flight perks or things like that. But pretty much the episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah, I was going to say, who would have thought that Chinese government officials were fans of British television shows?
Yeah, because according to the articles, China is looking to actually fully embrace this by 2020. Now, if you guys don't know anything about the way the Chinese market and economy and social profile is working, is number one, I remember we talked about the Sam when we said, in China, most people know that, look, in terms of their privacy rights, they don't really have that because the government is watching all. So they've been moving advancement in all these different aspects when it comes to payment systems, even with AI technology as it is now, augmented reality. The police in China use augmented reality glasses to identify people. I mean, like straight out of sci-fi 2025 movie or whatever you want to call it. So they are really ahead of that, which in some ways is really cool, but also very scary. And that whole Black Mirror episode comes to play. But Sam, what do you think about just this whole
it's a scary proposition. I was trying to equate it to something in the US, and I was like, okay, maybe what you say is the same thing as a social security number that's tied to a credit score. So if you don't have a good enough credit score, you can't buy a place. It's hard for you to rent an apartment. It's hard for you to buy a car. But then I started thinking about all the other implications. They're saying you cannot get on a plane. So just imagine you have a bad credit score. Let's say because you went to college and you haven't paid back all your loans yet, or you're late on paying your loans back, you haven't found a great job. All of a sudden, you can't travel anywhere, so you can't travel to look for work. You can't use the trains. Like, it makes no sense. And the whole idea there is that people can also report you for being a bad social civilian, like a bad person, I guess. And then that counts against you. So how do they know that when people are reporting other people, they're not doing it maliciously?
See, that's the part that it's one thing if it was, I mean, it's, to me, I still think it's bad, but I think it's one thing if you left it as an authoritarian level where it was police or certain people that were doing that. But when you now have, those people exchange, it literally is the episode of Black Mirror where it's like, I'm watching Sam and Sam just spat gum on the floor.
Oh yeah, I get 2 stars, going all the way down to 2 stars.
Exactly, that's the kind of thing you get. Or Sam like almost spat gum, and then you stopped, and you threw in the trash.
Hey, why is it me? Juan could do something.
I mean,
no, actually, Juan's got a really high social score. I think he's pretty cool.
Juan's like 5 stars all the way. 5 stars all the way.
I think Juan's biggest detriment is when he, brings up hypothetical situations and refers to himself in the third person. Other than that, he's golden.
Oh God, we're ranking you at 3 stars for doing that.
Man. Yeah, that's right. That's being self-indulgent, and you're not.
I mean, again, Juan would like to point out that you're just doing this punitively. Other than that, he's pretty cool.
Well, it's the word of 2 against 1. 2 against 1. 2 of us tell
yeah.
And I think that
refers to himself in the third person.
Yeah,
I think that right there, actually, I mean, like we're joking around about it, but this system is entirely designed to be punitive. It's kind of a Reddit syndrome that would take over actual AFK life, where you're not gonna praise good behavior. You're only gonna punish bad behavior. It's the same thing with services like Yelp. Overwhelmingly, people are sort of trained to seek out attention and to complain when they feel they've been wronged. They're far less likely to leave a good review, or, I mean, again, sort of a good-natured, thought-out, rational review when it comes to that other policy too. So, I mean, we can point that China is an obvious testbed for this, the way that they would probably want to crack down on speech that they don't particularly enjoy, political dissidents. There's a cultural history there that definitely needs to be taken into consideration. But to think that this won't also run like wildfire through capitalist societies is entirely short-sighted. It's something that we need to be ahead of just because we can point and say, oh, well, China's doing it over there. But think about how many times, especially in our careers, where sort of the strength of our social numbers and the quality of our social commentary is ranked and graded and has a dollar amount affixed to it, and how easily you can disrupt someone's livelihood based on things that they've done in the social media space. That is entirely possible for it to find interest and find footing in our society too.
No, I do agree, and that was the next question I wanted to ask is, where do you see this spreading? Because one of the things I just thought about it was like, okay, we have China is a communist country, we know that, but we also have a lot of socialist countries that, and again, in also even places that have a very strong democracy where you might want to put this in place where it could even start from companies. Certain companies might say we want to promote social awareness and social well-being and using our app, and then people start scoring, and then it slowly changes and changes. Before you know it, we start looking at each other with like watchful eyes and going like we're having dinner and we're all just looking at each other and like did he just use his hands to eat in front of me?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
How dare
it's a difficult conversation because we need to split the differences on things like, excuse me, sorry guys, I'm going to be froggy this whole episode. We need to split the difference on things like building a community. I feel like we're at our best when we're engaged in our neighborhoods. When we're actually trying to make our communities better, when we're working towards those positive ends. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and it's not that difficult to take some of that goodwill, that good sentiment of we're working on this community improvement, but we're also going to shame the bad behavior in our community too. And again, I think that's the spark right there that sets off a powder keg. Finding that balance is going to be extremely difficult in the current setup that we have, because I do think social media algorithms are wrecking a good chunk of the kinds of conversations we could be having to improve our communities. It's entirely divisive. It's echo chambery. It's full of clickbait, knee-jerk reaction. It makes all of us shorter attention span and more reactionary. And adding a social score, like a credit score on top of that right now would be a significant hit to our society and a significant hit to our democracy.
Yeah, I mean, and also it plays to, I mean, you look at the psychological aspect. What are people who are shy, who don't, engage that much in society
Oh,
socially?
it automatically plays to the worst of our
Yes.
instincts.
Yeah, or like, just people are just naturally grumpy, I mean, like you're gonna have a hard life.
Yeah, no,
Well,
it's just how do you know if you're on the blacklist? There's really no real information about knowing how you got on that list, knowing how you get removed from that list.
like me being on the YouTube demonetization list. Like I don't know. They don't tell me.
Am I on the list? How do I get put back on the monetization side of things? You never know.
Yeah,
It's a mystery, and that is half the problem.
Well, moving on to our next topic. Hopefully, this whole social program kind of doesn't come to our neck of the woods. But Frontier is seeking an injunction against striking West Virginia workers. They asked a judge on Thursday to stop the striking workers in West Virginia and Ashburn, Virginia, from engaging in what the company calls rampant unlawful activity, as well as abuse of other Frontier employees, including workers brought to fill the striking jobs. So Frontier, who had done some, I call it shady practices in terms of lobbying in West Virginia. We talked about this sometime last year. And they're trying to impose on what I call workers' rights. And they're trying to stop them from the strike. But what do you guys just think about this article and what's going on there with Frontier, which for some reason they like to just, for a small company, not small, but for their size and reach in general as a telecom company, they tend to make a lot of news noise.
It's interesting, right? Because if you look at Frontier's stock prices, Frontier hasn't been doing great over the last few years. Actually, it's doing better now, but between like what it was a year ago and now, it's just started gaining back. Right, there was a huge dip within the last 3 months. So it's just there's something wrong there. They're trying to figure out how to save costs. Why part of why they didn't extend these contracts agreements was because they're trying to find ways to save costs. In other words, screwing over their employees in other or their unionized employees in order to save costs. And now it's really kind of baffling how they've decided now to go to court and get an injunction against people who just picketing outside. They're claiming that these people are being violent and whatnot, but the one case that I've been able to find what's it called? A union buster or a picket buster or strike buster, whatever you want to call them, pulling a gun on someone who was picketing. So it wasn't even the people who were picketing that were being violent in that instance. So I'm still trying to find what the impetus is for preventing these people from doing what they're legally allowed to do, which is picket, and also fight for a job and fight for a living wage. Now, I think as of 19 or 20 hours ago, the judge actually granted this injunction. So we'll have to see how this goes, but it's never a good look when you're fighting with your employees and going to court to prevent them from, from basically exercising their rights.
Any thoughts, Juan?
No, I completely agree with Sam. This is always the kind of drama that I think makes investors and shareholders nervous and twitchy. Just in general, though, I think this is going to be a growing conversation in our society. We've seen zero wage upward mobility for a vast majority of employees in the United States. We've seen significant growth at the top, but that does speak to a culture of wealth extraction. We're not seeing companies reinvesting in their talent. We're seeing companies do stock buybacks. So they're just taking these insane profits at a time when America has never been more productive. I mean, when we actually look at what we make and what we produce, we are fulfilling a significant portion of demand with zero growth for the labor that actually goes into fulfilling that demand. All at the same time, we're seeing a significant disparity in wages at the top. So America is probably due a market correction. Unfortunately, that market correction coming at a time when technology is probably going to help enable an even further divide between sort of executives and labor. And we're going to have some really frank conversations about the value of human labor and the value of human dignity. That we can't even have grown-up conversations about living wages, doing the math on what it would take to, just feed one person, clothe one person, house one person, and how much that labor is worth, let alone can that one person once a month eat out at a restaurant or go to a movie. Yep. Like no room in the budget for that. Well, that's not really valuing the sanctity of human dignity. So when self-driving semis come and wreck a huge swath of the young male job base, when better computer algorithms come and wreck a huge chunk of the financial sector for white-collar jobs and middle management jobs, we're going to have an ever-growing disparity between people with good jobs that can afford some kind of middle class or even lower middle class lifestyle and the people who get to profit off of all of the market disruptors that have led us to that. Jeff Bezos, I think, is a perfect example. He went from being a media darling, a media sweetheart, to kind of being enemy number one in this discussion. You hear about his employees not having healthcare. You hear about his employees like peeing in bottles to make deliveries. You hear about, problems with exhaustion in Amazon. And that's the kind of conversation we used to mock and deride when it came out of Foxconn. Yep. It's here. It's here now. So there's going to be some kind of reckoning. It's just how that manifests, and does the pendulum swing too far in the opposite direction is what we hope to avoid.
Now, speaking of that market correction, you remember we saw an article. You sent me an article this week about spending or something like that. I can't remember. Was it on the U.S. economy? If you can recall,
consumer spending.
Consumer spending.
has actually seen a decline over the last quarter, and that's a little worrying, especially when people are saying, "Oh, the job markets are doing good, people are being employed, all these companies are making record gains in the markets," but then consumers aren't spending. That's something to look at. That's something that should worry people, because it shows that people are still somewhat uncertain about what their economic futures look like. There's still doubt about their security, their financial security. But I think what also plays into this is this conversation that Elon Musk has actually kind of started over the last couple of years, which is this universal basic income. More and more, it's becoming a little bit, it's becoming a subject that gets more serious as the years go by. As technology, automation, all these things happen, that decreases the amount of resources that employers have to spend to generate value. What do we do for these displaced employees that no longer have jobs because of automation, because of AI, because of all these advances that we're making in technology? And I think it's a really, really good time to start looking at the concept of a universal basic income. It's not as though it hasn't been done elsewhere in the world. I think it's just a conversation that we now need to start pushing as people who are technologically savvy, as people who understand what might be coming in the future, before our representatives, take forever, and we're all left behind in a world where robots and AI are doing everything that humans are, or are doing most of the things that humans are doing to earn a living right now.
Well, and at the same time, we could be saying, how much could society be benefiting from those advancements? Right now, our current system is gauged to make sure that individuals can benefit to an extreme from every major iteration and every major improvement to automation and workflow and productivity. We could have some of those conversations where spreading out even just a slightly larger fraction of that benefit, we could have that 1950s science fiction future that we envisioned, where people have significantly more leisure time, or the education process could take longer. You could be an apprentice for a larger chunk of your life and not feel like you were falling behind. But we would have to have a really stark conversation about what we value. And that's a really difficult thing for us to have right now, in how divided we are. And I think that the real debate will come down between the sort of social leaning Democrats, not the socialists. I always have to preface that. Socialism isn't what I think we're going for in any kind of Soviet sense. And that's why you have to get away from democratic socialism and instead look at social democrats. It's like the People's Front of Judea, or the Judean People's Front. Because there is a difference, and as much as I hate having to granular wordplay like that, there is a significant difference. But then also the really sort of extremist libertarians, because both of those are idealism. A society built on the tenets of an Ayn Randian style libertarianism is just as much a fantasy as the sort of socialism Star Trek future would be. Neither could really work in our current world. Neither could really exist, but both are aspirational. Both are people hoping for some kind of utopian environment based on an extreme market philosophy. And if we could have the real grown-up debate between those two forces, the reality we would end up with in the middle, I think, would be the best possible balance for the future of our economy.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. Thank you for summarizing my mental thoughts. You went inside, and you reached
it's great minds, man. We're on that wavelength. I think we've been in agreement there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we just have to see how that pans out. And this started from a discussion about Frontier, by the way, guys, if you're wondering.
But that's the thing. I think we just took what's happening right now and try to explain it in a way that this is not just isolated to Frontier. You're going to see more of this as time goes on, as companies want to, have more give back value to their shareholders. They have to find somewhere. If they're not expanding in their region, if they're not making new products, where are they going to find that money from? They're going to find that money in synergy, what they call synergy, which basically translates to taking money away from their employees, to laying off people, so they can show more value in their books to their investors. That's simply what it is. And I think people have to be a little bit more wary that we're approaching a time, we're rapidly approaching a time right now where artificial intelligence is making leaps and bounds. Automation is becoming the status quo. So what happens to that flesh and blood person who's been doing this job?
Yeah, it's true. And think about it. Like Ronald says, aircraft containers don't load themselves. Now, I'm not sure if you're referring to robots or human beings.
No, he was saying that there are certain aspects of any job that a robot can't fulfill, and he's absolutely correct.
That is
But
true.
what we can see, though, so like let's take the service industry as one example of a thought experiment. So, service industry. Let's say you've got a supermarket. What have we already seen supermarkets working towards is making customers part-time employees, removing cashiers,
Yeah.
and putting in self-checkout lanes. And then what do we see from Amazon? Amazon immediately gets their hands on the Whole Foods franchise, and they're already launching experiments on how you could even get rid of cash registers. You just have sensors on every package, and you sign into your account when you walk into the store, and as you walk out, they automatically deduct all of the cost of the goods that you option. So you still need stockers. You still need people to load the shelves with product for people to walk around. But how much of a store used to be cashiers? And now you've just wrecked a significant number of those cashiers. So extrapolating that, you look at something like the semi-driving, loading, shipping market. Look at how many jobs you could cut out from that equation because of automation. It's not that you're going to get rid of every person. No one expects that. That's not what we're talking about. It's that, are you going to disrupt more people than were previously employed? And that is a surety. That is a guarantee. The march of progress is happening too quickly, and it's too exciting, and it's too cost effective. So instead of having a fleet of drivers, you're only going to have a couple technicians, you'll have people that can handle those individual instances when a semi truck gets into trouble or has an accident, probably an accident caused by a human driver in another car. And then you kind of get back on track, but you're going to displace significantly more people than you will create new jobs to service that new paradigm.
Yeah, definitely agree on that point. I think also you look at it too, this that there are many social pressures that are pushing for this automation as well. You have the fact that self-driving cars, and you're talking about, okay, how does that affect different population groups? Older people, they still want to drive, but do we put them in that category where, like, okay, by the time you get to 65, 70, you have to switch to self-driving car, or at least a car with automation.
And the thing is, like, I would really love for our society to have that conversation, not as a punitive measure. Like someone else was saying, like, well, maybe we could start the self-driving revolution with people who have DUIs. So like, oh, if you have a DUI, it's mandatory that you no longer drive a car anymore. And you're like, well, yeah, if you make it a punishment, we're never really going to find that tipping point of people wanting to do this. I want self-driving cars. I want to not have to occupy my mental faculties with operating a motor vehicle in Los Angeles. Like my commute down to Newegg, if I leave at 5:45 in the morning to hit my production gig, my drive down there is about 50 minutes, which isn't terrible. That's fine. Our production day usually wraps around 5, so I'm hitting peak rush hour, and my drive back home is between 2 and 2.5 hours. That's 2 and 2.5 hours that I could be doing anything else, but I have to operate a motor vehicle. So I'm listening to podcasts or maybe an audiobook or jamming out to some music, anything that can make me not hate my life for 2.5 hours. And instead, I could be replying to emails, putting together quotes, writing a script, anything else. So I'm ready. Sign me up. There is no passion for the open road right now. I can always go to Vegas and hit a track day if I want to drive a car. Really drive it. That's fine by me. I'm ready for that to take over. But as soon as it takes over, we're also going to see that there are significant numbers of businesses, taxis, the sharing economy of Uber and Lyft. They're all running as fast as they can to getting humans out of the equation because they'll make more money as soon as humans are displaced. Now, what do we do with all of those humans that have been displaced?
I didn't know that is very true. And speaking of displacement, let's move to our next topic on LTE networks. A new study, a new study has come out and said that the most relevant networks in the U.S. currently right now are Verizon and guess who else? T-Mobile. And looking at some of the operator chats here, I actually will try and share this for you guys so you can see. Bam. Can you guys see that?
No.
Okay.
Frozen.
All right.
And I was muted. This hangout's going great.
Okay.
No, I think that froze up. But I mean, to go along with that, my anecdotal research in playing with different phones, I've been very impressed with T-Mobile's improvements to the greater LA metro area, where before they were a little like Sprint, where they would be amazing in one city block and then they would disappear like 10 feet from where they were good.
Yeah.
They now handily rival my AT&T account. My wife and I have a Project Fi Sim, but we really kind of need a better and more consistent family plan. And we're seriously, in probably in the next couple months, we'll probably be switching over to T-Mobile.
Yeah, looking at the chart they have here, and they broke it down to different regions in the U.S., Midwest, Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, and West. In the Midwest, T-Mobile is second to Verizon. They're above 90%, and then AT&T is Sprint at above 85% in terms of availability and reach in region. In the Northeast, it is Verizon and T-Mobile are very close and around the 93% range, while AT&T is Sprint. I think AT&T is just at 85%. Sprint is below that. Southwest is the same thing. They're above 90%. T-Mobile, Verizon, Southeast, sorry, while AT&T is about 85%. AT&T's best reach is in the Southwest, which is closer to 90%, maybe around 89. And then Sprint also has its highest reach at maybe around 86 or 86% or so. Still, across the board, Verizon and T-Mobile are above 90%, which just goes to show, like I said, you said, T-Mobile has done a really good job, and they've been talking about this with all the other carriers. They've been doing like trying to make sure the network, they were the ones be pushing 4x4 MIMO, which, at first when they started that, doing all the devices that supported it, but it looks like they've gone a long way. And this to me, the big question here is for it's AT&T. Sam, what do you think this says about AT&T, what they're trying to do, especially, or have they lost focus because they're spending a lot of time trying to buy Warner Brothers and looking at that divestiture there in terms of entertainment content production, and not focusing on their LTE network to maintain that, to match, Verizon, which was their, number one competitor at the time.
Yeah, I think what AT&T is doing is ultimately going to keep them relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're looking at here is basically LTE availability.
Yeah.
This is just saying you get a better LTE signal, right? But when it comes to content, when it comes to value, I would say, it probably would be AT&T and T-Mobile neck to neck because of T-Mobile's own carrier, T-Mobile's agreements with all these other
apps and
apps and whatnot. But AT&T has what? They have Dish or DirecTV.
They have DirecTV, and they're trying to go after Warner Brothers.
So they're looking at their approach as I'm looking at their approach as a more holistic view on providing value to their customers. However, yes, I think they're actually beginning to lose focus on something that's very important, because if you fall behind the LTE game, how are you going to consistently provide that content to this rectangles, the rectangles that everybody's going to view your, view this future, Time Warner cable content on? So yes, they're definitely a losing in this fight. I think what really stands out to me is that Sprint, just across the board, man, just like fails. It's like fail. Sprint, you just don't stop failing. Thank you for the consistency.
What do you think about that, Juan?
About Sprint failing?
Sprint in the fact. Okay. I mean,
So,
yeah, you get it.
Who was it that we were talking? We were talking about this on the board on the Pocket Now podcast. Oh, I mean, we were joking because we should probably talk about this a little too. Is the I forgot to email you guys in the show notes the Broadcom
Yeah.
acquisition of
Yeah.
Qualcomm getting hammered.
Mhm.
But that still, I feel that still leaves Qualcomm in sort of an optionable position. Any major tech firm that saw how close Broadcom got to acquiring Qualcomm could now probably also make sort of a hostile play at acquiring Qualcomm too.
Yeah, I was
But at the
speaking.
same,
Well, you finish that, and I'll
oh,
get
but
to
but
my
but
thing. Yeah.
as the analogy and what we can use to segue out of that, Sprint in the position that they're in, and especially with the changes coming to data and connectivity, getting Sprint out of that CDMA pit, making them more internationally compatible. And I know that, you know, SoftBank bought them out. They could be a great acquisition for some other type of hardware industry, like an Apple or a Google or a company like that, to come in and say, we're going to make you the backbone service of our specific products, and this is how we're going to go about shaking up the market. If we really want to uncarrier, maybe what we could do is leverage Sprint's infrastructure to sell iPhones. You buy an iPhone and you can still use your iPhone on AT&T, or in the cost of your iPhone, you can have free service nationwide.
Yeah. And speaking of SoftBank, to transition over to our last topic you mentioned with Broadcom, of course, pulling out of the, the proposed buyout of Qualcomm because, the president said no. The new board member who was elected, who we talked about, is talking to several global partners, investors, to buy out San Diego-based chip manufacturer. And one of the potential partners is SoftBank. Because they're looking at the fact that SoftBank also owns ARM. And that would be, for SoftBank, that would be a very nice way to solidify Qualcomm, which is, of course, heavily invested in ARM chipsets and ARM themselves. And it looks like that is still going to happen. As you mentioned, Qualcomm looks very soft because of how the acquisition ended. It wasn't something that they rebuffed it themselves or were able to find a way to do that.
Yeah,
They
the
were
entire
saved
time,
by Hail Mary.
Qualcomm shareholders were saying, we don't want this, and Broadcom kept going, no, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things about that is the fact that I think Qualcomm's executives, just to me in general, just didn't do a good job of saying what the shareholders were saying. They didn't forcefully
They let
say.
go of their something. They basically asked the CEO to leave so they could get someone who was more amenable.
Well, yeah,
to a sale. Come on,
that is not. And again, that someone now is looking at other partners that are more amenable to the U.S. market. Because if you think about it, if SoftBank already owns Sprint, then they can definitely go ahead and buy Broadcom, right? Quote unquote. The problem is Qualcomm, sorry. That puts Qualcomm in a very difficult predicament when it comes to carrier partnerships, especially for LTE and 5G, which they're spearheading, and they've got different aspects of 5G they're working with, AT&T, I know with T-Mobile, all those different things, and you're going, this is a company that needs to understand where it needs to go. And I've said this before, is a lack of brand recognition has just put the company in a position where it looks soft. It just, forget anything else, it just looks soft because
they basically own all the high-end like chipset market right now, but they're still being treated like a second-tier player because people are still trying to acquire them, which is very odd.
Yeah,
you would think they'll be the one going on an acquisition spree right now.
No, exactly.
And I think the only thing that's actually properly buffeting Qualcomm right now is just having government pressure. Again, the Trump administration saying, no, Broadcom, you can't buy it, and Broadcom going, all right, I guess that finally kills it. That is not a good look for Qualcomm. They should be much stronger in the market, and they should be able to leverage a much more ruthless position than what they're currently exercising.
Yeah. I mean, this article, I'll share it in the description sections talking about some of the some of the similarities and breakdown between Qualcomm and ARM, how ARM and Qualcomm are both fighting Intel. This would be big, but then if this happens, Intel has a can have a big say, look, this shouldn't happen because this is going to affect our business. You're basically creating a huge juggernaut that is going to tip the scales of balance within the tech industry, especially with chip manufacturing. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Who knows if this happens or not, but we'll see. Speaking of something that may or may not happen or will happen, the LG G6 successor, or the LG G7, or whatever it's going to be called, is said to. So there are two rumors. I couldn't find the link for the other rumor, but the first one is that it's going to be an LCD display instead of OLED, which they've always had in the past, and
on the G series,
on the G series. So that's not surprising. But also, it also to me points to the fact that maybe their OLED, they're a little bit tentative on what happened with their OLEDs last year, especially with the Pixel.
Well,
they might want to get
still
it right.
make this argument that the G is a mass market consumer product, which should come in at some kind of lower material build cost. They're still going to price it again.
If they're going to price it at $600, then fine.
But they're still going to price it against other gadgets. The only thing, and again, this is potential, which means LG has shown us in the past how good they are at not realizing potential. But if they go with an LCD, I would really love to see them do something like an insanely high refresh rate, like the Razer phone, or some kind of quad dot. So instead of RGB, maybe RGBW, where you have a white subpixel to help insanely boost the brightness of the display. That could be an interesting benefit to a phone like the G series. Again, this is LG, so I doubt very much.
It's funny.
But that could be cool if they did something as an improvement to LCD technology, not as a compromise because we needed to hit a certain price point.
It's very interesting you mentioned that. I did a tour with LG Display, which is a different company from LG. They showcased the rollable.
How much fun is it checking out like their skunk works and their future projects?
Yeah, and they showed some of the LCDs and OLED panels for phones. We couldn't take pictures of them, and they showed they could accommodate any type of notch that you can think of, like corner, left, right, you name it. Some of the LCDs looked really good. Some of the they had LCD panels for monitors with speakers in them for laptops, and they sounded really good. And I'm going, okay, so you might want to sell this to your sister company, or
Yeah, I mean, like, or also just because I remember the first time I did an LG display tour, it was they had just cracked the translucent display problem. So they were showing off concept vending machines where instead of having like a panel on the side, it was all display.
Yeah.
And so you would walk up and you would like, well, I want a bag of chips. So I just touch on the glass where the chips are, and then I tap my phone, and then chips fall, and that was it. That was the whole interaction right there. So many amazing concepts and amazing futuristic design elements. And again, we have to have that wait and see. When will consumers get it, and when will companies think consumers are ready to use that kind of stuff? And unfortunately, that always seems to be the major drag. Is it's expensive now, but if you started mass producing it for consumers, it would get cheaper faster. But no one wants to be first, because if it's too expensive and you're first, then someone else will undercut you, and then consumers will not use who was first. And it's just this miserable psychological waiting game that we have in the market right now.
Any thoughts, Sam?
No. I definitely I can understand why they would use LCD rather than OLED. It's looking more and more like they want to keep the G series, or
yes, exactly, whatever it replaces
at a certain price point, and it not even keep it at that price point, maybe even reduce the price point a little bit, because we all know these things are getting cheaper. The LCD screens are going to get cheaper. So The V30 seems like the de facto high end, and that's it. There's the V30, and then everything else is like a higher tier middle range phone. That's what it's looking at right now.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's move over to our last topic.
Oh, sorry, real quick before we go to that last topic, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think the practical benefit would be between a high-end LCD, like let's say we had a crazy fast refresh rate LCD on a G7 versus an OLED? Why do you think that debate has become so important for premium phones right now?
Gaming, man.
Well, no, that's just it. Is if you had like G-Sync, the equivalent of G-Sync for Android, wouldn't that be better for gaming? And couldn't you do that?
I mean,
with an
yeah,
LCD?
that's the argument that Razer's
making
put forward. Yeah, and Razer looked at it, and as much as some people would dog the phone, and you had some issues and things like that, Razer did a very smart business calculation of saying how many gamers out there for mobile gaming, especially in markets like China and out there where it's huge. One mobile game has 10 million live users, like concurrent users. They're going, fine, we just need to sell 1 million. I mean, like, we just need to get in. And LG, with the G series, they could do something interesting there, like you said, where they make these panels, or at least their sister company makes these panels at a very high rate, and they can come in at a price range. Again, if they line things properly, you can come in at a price range, a high refresh rate for a mobile display, and that comes in at a price point that is attractive. Like I said, if they price it at 600, it makes everything else look like, okay, wow, you've come to compete. Then again, there's the marketing aside, right?
Well, because I mean, we have comments here from Ronald Collins and Fat Produce too. I mean, there are downsides to using an OLED, like screen burn-in, and right now I think we face a slightly wider disparity or inconsistency in OLED manufacturing. So it seems to me that the big draw for an OLED is you can bend it easier. That doesn't matter to me in a practical sense. In fact, if you could make a quality argument, like with less screen burn-in, we can make the display 25% brighter than the best OLED, then that would also be a marketing point that I think would resonate with consumers. I like OLED for how juicy and contrasty it is, but I'm not entirely sure how over the last 2 years we became this like OLED or nothing. It's kind of like, oh, the phone's made out of a really high quality, durable polycarb that comes in amazing colors. That's plastic. That's cheap. They're gouging customers. Only premium phones are made out of glass. Everyone knows that. And we're kind of doing the same thing. Oh, it's not an OLED? Well, then it's garbage. And you're like, well, that's not.
Well, before we make that leap there, I will put it, the screen burning issue. Look, to me, I believe the screen burning issue is mostly LG's fault. I don't think Samsung has the same rate as LG's.
Don't forget that Samsung was jumping through hoops to offset. Remember, they do that little wiggle with the home buttons on the Galaxy to try and offset, and people were still experiencing burn-in on that.
Yeah, but I don't think it's still as high, though. I mean, like, it's not something.
I mean, Samsung is doing a better job, but Samsung phones still face burn-in issues, even with their software trying to dance.
I mean, okay, look, I've never experienced it in my life, so since I am correct 100% of the time, you all
with a sample size of 1, you're running a perfect,
the ultimate sample size of 1. Okay.
Yeah, there might be a little bit of bias in that sample set.
I know, but I do hear you. But I think the thing about OLED with LCD is the argument. I think the argument transfers from TVs. That's also some of the thing that Samsung did to make that sell. Is even though they never actually made OLEDs as TVs, but they used that on the mobile space and did this big switch. I mean, OLED has its benefits, it has its disadvantages, but I think the problem is a lot of the LCDs we've had in the past have not done a good job of just looking crisp. at the end of the day, it's
So I mean, it really comes down to, could we improve the contrast ratio on an LCD?
Yeah, because
that I agree with.
Because people look at the device, you buy a device, you're like, ooh, so you show a Samsung screen to someone, they're like, Jesus Christ, you show an LCD.
Isn't that a little like the Pepsi challenge though, where if you take one little sip of Pepsi because it has a sweeter profile, you're going to outperform Coca-Cola, but then for people who drink these products over, like actually finishing the bottle, the Coca-Cola outscores Pepsi. If you just glimpse a really juicy, high saturation, high contrast OLED, you're like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. But then over the life of that gadget, did you actually get a significant benefit to warrant this psychological, this branding, again, this sort of emotional?
The answer, Juan? Nobody cares.
Well, but that's just it. Because
people are going to care more and more.
They do care, but people care in sort of the Pepsi challenge way. They don't really care about the life cycle of the gadget. We got another comment from Andrew Wallace. Every Samsung phone on display at Best Buy had burn-in to some extent, even if they'd only been on for about a month. There's a reason why my Samsung TV is a QLED and not an OLED. Now, really look at this.
It's not because of burn-in. I'll tell you that.
Samsung executives themselves said that's why they went with QLED.
No, the exec also said the reason is because you cannot get to 1,000 nits in HDR. So all those people who talk about HDR on OLED,
right? Now, look at I want everyone to look at what Enabong just did there.
And there, right?
Oh, wait. No, it is because of burn-in, but also.
Yeah. look, Juan. Okay, look.
But we're talking about burn-in.
Do not catch me like that next time. Come on, man.
No, but we're talking about burn-in. Isn't burn-in way more of a problem when you have static UI elements than on something like a TV? And look at the psychology of what Samsung did for branding. You walk into a Costco, you walk into a Best Buy, and you look at LG OLED, and then right next to it, if you're not paying attention,
QLED.
Samsung's QLED looks a lot like OLED. That's such a gimmick.
Great marketing.
Such a play.
Yeah,
I love my Samsung QLED TV. It's a great TV, but that's janky. That is the market leader playing a game psychologically with their customers. So again, there's this perception that somehow OLED is this magical unicorn technology when there are significant advantages, pros and cons, but there are significant advantages to using LCD. And I don't understand why an LG, again, a company that uses an LCD in their phones always approaches the conversation with the hat in hand. Oh, we know that we're not using the OLED and we're so sorry. And when instead saying like Razer just going out there baller, like, can your screen do this? No, it can't. Shut up. Pay me.
That's the question. Are they going to replace their or are they going to upgrade the LCD to a
and again,
to a 120?
I don't have high hopes for LG. That you and I we're in agreement there. I don't have a lot of confidence in them right now, but if they did, that would be awesome.
If they did, they might actually be focusing on a sector of the market that is just like exponentially growing right now. If you look at Fortnite, like people are signing up for beta on the iPhone.
iOS, man.
Fortnite. It's ridiculous that this is happening on an app, on a mobile game. So you put 120 hertz on that thing, and you're gaming a game like you're playing in a game like Fortnite. You already have an advantage over someone who's playing on a regular LCD display. So there are advantages that they could push if they're adopting a 120 hertz LCD screen. But like you said, it's still left to. We'll see if LG takes advantage of that.
Well, and I'd really love to see a G series phone with an insane outdoor high brightness mode. We keep talking about nits, and what are we kind of at in OLED territory? Somewhere like 600 nits on our phones.
600. No, OLED. It's the max for the S8 or 9 is 1,000.
Okay, so I mean, like if we could see like a 15 to 20% improvement in outdoor brightness, that would be insane. And I bet you could generate that with an LCD panel that had a white subpixel. So then not only would we be winning with RGB stripe, we'd be walking away from a pen tile grid layout. We'd have true sort of 3-dot color per pixel information, and then a brightness pixel for whenever you're outside, that would be enough for me to say, yes, consider a phone like this rumored G7. If it's just the same old LCD tech that we've had before, then it's going to be a non-talking point. And it's not going to be bad, but it's not going to be stellar. And that's going to kind of go along with the sort of mediocre reputation that LG seems to generate around the discussion of their products.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Fortnite, which was my transition there until you started talking again, Juan, Xbox Cloud Gaming Division has been created. I find this very interesting, and I think this only happened because Xbox, the former head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, was promoted to an exec position. And he started last year. They started last year creating this cloud gaming division. And one of the things I think from the article from The Verge they're looking at is that Microsoft is indeed truly looking at not leaving the Xbox behind, but changing the way they do that, which probably lends to all those rumors of trying to buy Steam at the same time, because it looks like they're looking at what NVIDIA is doing with cloud gaming. They're looking at also mobile gaming like Fortnite as well. And, they've done some experiments in the past. Now, the question is, can they officially transition Xbox to just be the cloud platform where it's Xbox anywhere? Maybe this is the genius way of Satya Nadal breaking away from hardware and ensuring that Xbox is everywhere. I'm putting a lot of credit there, but just play with me here on this one. Sam, what do you think about that?
If they can pull it off, I am all for it. If they can pull it off to where you have a smaller footprint in the living room, if they can pull it off to where they actually deliver on that unified environment between your console, your PC, and your mobile, then yes, I'm all for it. If I can say, hey, I'm playing Fortnite on my on my Android phone, and I switch over and I can play it on my PC, just pick it up on my PC, and I switch over and I can play it on the biggest screen of my TV. Then I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea. This is all happening on the back end. This is all happening, the graphics, everything. They've bought all these companies that already do these things over the last few years. So yeah, I can look forward to something like that. But what kind of graphics, what kind of power for these games will we be seeing when we don't have hardware at home doing the processing? That's the question I want them to answer. If they can say you get the same graphic quality as having an Xbox One X at home that you would from streaming a game, and that your LTE service, like you don't have to, break the bank on getting like 300 up and down to play the game well, then I'm all for it. But there's a lot of barriers to that.
I think NVIDIA has answered that question though. I mean, like I said, I've used NVIDIA beta. I used it on a MacBook that has no graphical qualities to say the least, and it matched my highest resolution on the MacBook, which is whatever weird Apple resolution is higher than 1080p, at 150 frames per second, and then at 1080 it did 200. So I think that's possible on that aspect. And according to NVIDIA's benchmark was you need to have 25 up and down for you to do that. And I
just
tested
25. That's 25. That's good.
I tested it on a network that was around 30 or 40 up and down. I couldn't find one.
And we shouldn't discount that the current state of gaming, like to plug Newegg now, we just did a whole segment yesterday on Thursday about esports and some of the new collegiate initiatives like scholarships and college programs dedicated to the entire infrastructure of esports and competitive gaming. A system like this could do really well when we acknowledge that right now gaming is really diverse. There are a number of games that it won't matter if you're really topping out some sort of graphics theoretical maximum if you can keep an insanely high frame rate. There are some games that are going to thrive on more Twitch style gameplay, and they're going to be games where people want to explore a lush graphical environment, and having the flexibility to deliver that at cost, provided you've got the data infrastructure to really support it. I think now is the right time, because we also see that this is coming at a point where the stranglehold that brick and mortar shops have had over gaming is significantly weaker than it's ever been. You know, the PS4 and the current Xbox are still beholden to an idea of retail sales that don't really exist. Toys R Us just started liquidating, you know, like,
oh, not even started, they're done. They're
are they completely finished?
They've already said they're going to close out their North American operations. That's it.
So that's a major party that now a Microsoft, a Sony, and Nintendo is not beholden to sell shiny plastic coasters that have games on them. We can go to an all Steam style market for every next gen console system and not have to feel like, you know, that we have to placate Target or placate Walmart, because gamers don't really go there anymore. GameStop doesn't have the same leverage over this economy that they used to. So this is, I think, the right time and the right play to start pushing those boundaries before we start talking about the next hardware cycle or the next hardware generation. Get consumers used to the idea now that, well, and think about how many people are used to the idea. Like, how many people really go out of their way to go to a store and buy a box with a disc in it versus, oh, I could just buy it from the comfort of my living room right now. Cool, I'll do that. You know, that kind of stuff is going to become more popular. And with that infrastructure in place, then game portability is going to be just as important as content and distribution portability. Like, I can watch a movie from anywhere I've got a data connection. I should be able to play any game I want from anywhere I have a good data connection.
Oh, no, that's very true. And it's one thing you mentioned, which I've noticed Microsoft has, and has been pushing lately. Actually, not lately, but the last couple of months. You know, Phil Spencer will go out there and say, "Hey," or even Larry, what's his name again? The main Xbox guy again. Anyway, they always talk about cross-platform play. They're like, yeah, we want it. We can do it on PC. We can do it on PS4. And then you find out that a lot of developers and publishers like Ubisoft uses Microsoft Azure servers for cross-platform across PC, Xbox, PS4, and even some mobile platforms as well. So I think on the back end, they do have it set up where that is possible, and you're trying to drive that. I think if they can do it, like you said, Sam, then it really becomes, it becomes that really nice avenue where I think, your Xbox becomes this big, it becomes an NVIDIA Shield. Now, maybe if you want faster load times, you can actually get the game downloaded on your system, or you want an offline play type situation, sure, but you'd be streaming everything else, and I think
and the network would very easily determine. I mean, so like, let's say you really wanted like a really I'm trying to come up with a game that looks amazing, like Witcher, like
Witcher there, yeah.
You wanted that amazingly immersive, lush experience. That system would very easily be able to tell the consumer, like, we can play this game, but we're going to have to degrade things to match the bandwidth that you're on. If you want the best possible experience, you need this much storage. We're going to locally store a whole bunch of elements, and that way the game's going to run better. You'd need this kind of processing power. And this is also going to come at the same time as we're seeing next generation VR. Streaming a high quality VR experience is going to be a while before we have that kind of broadband infrastructure for people to do that with the same casualness that they can stream an HD game and have it look really good. So obviously there's still going to be holdover towards an older idea of locally storing and processing information. But I think for the gaming experience that we've captured today, I think most consumers would do fine with some sort of game rebroadcasting or game streaming service.
Yes. Well, Cal Ruggles says if you're streaming, you're streaming. How NVIDIA works is basically a video stream you're watching, but interactive. Not really. but kinda, Kyle. I mean, it's basically a virtualized version of your game that you are playing. Not necessarily streaming. It's just that your TV acts. It's like a virtual machine. I mean, your TV acts as the monitor for that virtual console, and then interacting with it. So you don't necessarily, it's that you're streaming it and you're watching an interactive play. It's more like, just think of a virtual Windows PC. That's what the game is representing. So I think on that aspect it is. But I mean, it's interesting, you know, that Microsoft is going this route, and hopefully, I mean, if this is how Satya Nadella wants to get rid of Xbox hardware and he can succeed, then I can say this is something he's done well, because this will literally allow anyone to go from, you know, PC to your TV to your mobile more effectively, and will now make every Windows laptop a gaming device. You know, that's $200, $400 you know, laptop, you now have access directly, and it makes sense now to look at Steam as that very important purchase to lock up for this, because then then it solidifies the fact that now they have a proper distribution platform. And it actually, because of this division, I think it doesn't actually affect Steam that much, because it's still just saying you can play on your PC, you can buy the Steam games anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how this pans out, and how people like Sony and Nintendo, but Nintendo always does things differently. So I expect
Nintendo, I think they make a good argument for why they have a sort of a stricter and slightly more closed ecosystem. But there's with everything that Nadella does at Microsoft, there's a hope that they don't try to buy Steam. I would love to see the competition between Microsoft and Valve in creating, publishing, distribution. That could be a really great arms race for consumers, because what we would get out of that versus them just buying it and then kind of, you know, we know how well Microsoft does with buying other companies. Instead of just buying it and sitting on it, I would love to see them actually fighting for our dollars, fighting for our attention. And what we would get out of that, I think, would be amazing. Like the advancements we'd see from competition would be incredible. And I think it would also spur on a couple other companies. Like, I think it would really motivate Apple to get some of their stuff out and get it done right, and use Apple TV as the backbone for what they could do with a similar distribution platform. And I think it would raise the bar for things like mobile games. You know, if a developer has an idea that they can move a game between phone, tablet, desktop, TV.
Oh, you mean the division?
No, I mean in general, just any.
Sorry. Sorry, just because that's what they told us when they.
Sorry. I avoided the division entirely, and it seems like that wasn't
the right choice. You made the right choice.
That wasn't a bad call. But that same idea, you know, if a developer had the infrastructure and had the support to know that their wacky little mobile game could live on in other distribution, on other platforms, on other screens, I think that would really raise the bar for the quality of content that they'd be willing to produce. Not assuming that they had to make their game to the lowest common denominator phone, but to the best living room distribution that they had access to. That could be awesome.
Cool. Yeah, so that is pretty much it. Kyle, I will definitely check out Remote if I can play my PC games on my smartphone. That might be a good app to definitely check out or do a video on. But yeah, we've come to the end of the show. Quickly, I want to ask you two questions, Juan, because I already know Sam's thoughts on this. One, did you check out the Infinity War trailer that dropped yesterday?
I did not.
What kind of human being are you?
I was one who was like feverishly sick at the beginning of last week, and is so far behind on all of my video projects.
From being sick in a blanket and just holding the phone.
Hold the phone, man.
Actually, in all seriousness, like on Monday, I was not able to keep my head up off the pillow. I was so sick, and also at the same time faced one of the worst psoriasis flare-ups I think I've ever experienced. So it was a struggle just getting back up to being functional for Newegg to do a live broadcast. So I'm legitimately stupid far behind on catching up.
Well, I guess
I'm replying to YouTube comments from a week ago. Like, sorry guys, I really did want to be a part of this discussion, but I could not hold a phone and type a couple days ago.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Thanks.
Pawn says, "Does Thanos die at the end?" Come on, come on. Now, the other one I was going to ask you is Ava DuVernay is set to direct The New Gods. What do you think about that?
I th- I think it's an interesting call for director. Right now, I think studios are getting good press on casting and directorial and writers. When they make an announcement, oh, this writer is going to be working on this. Oh, we're looking at rebooting that. We're going to be bringing in a whole new team to do this. The thing I would caution, though, is will that director really have the autonomy to produce the content that they want to, or will we see it run through?
I mean, yeah, I do agree on that part.
The same back channel of Suits and sycophants and yes men that seem to get in the way of production. And I think for DC, you can look at the difference in storytelling quality between a Wonder Woman versus a Batman v Superman.
That was a great movie. Extended cut.
No, great doesn't mean that it was good. I mean,
yeah, great is better than good. English dictionary. Check it out now. Yes, continue.
You could say it was a. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to get down that far. But I mean, we're talking in terms of storytelling quality. Patty Jenkins, I don't think there was any confidence in Wonder Woman being the smash hit that it turned out to be, and I think that actually worked to the benefit of Patty Jenkins having the ability to kind of do whatever she wanted because expectations were so low. That's kind of the same thing when we're talking about the New Gods. Like, I want studios to give storytellers the autonomy to take risks, because right now is the right time to do it. We're celebrating the success of Black Panther. I really feel like we could have had this Black Panther moment sooner in the Marvel pantheon of films.
I disagree. I actually disagree.
I think it's a debate worth having in a separate video to hash it all out. but I think that Black Panther was viewed by Marvel and Disney tactically as we can do it now because we're starting to exhaust the contracts of all of these white superheroes that are into their third and fourth films. I think we could have introed Black Panther sooner than we did. And I think we could have found and tapped into some of this market sooner than we did. We hit a zeitgeist where we got Black Panther in the same sort of 12-month cycles. We got a film like Get Out, and that's awesome. But again, Disney's a money-making juggernaut machine, and I think they were just sort of reading the tea leaves to say, we can't do another Iron Man film. We've already sort of exhausted our Captain America storytelling, and individual contracts are starting to expire. So who else do we have? Oh, we've got this Black Panther character that's going to fit in really well with the timing of the discussion of the day. That's the cynic in me saying like that was the calculated discussion. I think this could have happened sooner. I don't think there's anything unique to the Black Panther superhero that we couldn't have been exploring this before. The same thing with female representation. Why did it take so long to get a Wonder Woman movie? She's like the most iconic superhero, one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. Where's a female lead superhero for Marvel? We're finally getting Captain Marvel, and she's not even a part of the current MCU timeline. It's going to be a prequel to that. That's silly. We should be able to have a female superhero in Marvel land carry the weight of a film, even if it had been like a low budget spy thriller, like a Black Widow.
I was hoping that would be the first one to go. Like Black
you could
Widow.
totally do that. Make it a James Bond style film. You could do Haywire, but better. With Black Widow.
They've basically done something similar with what's it called? Jennifer Lawrence's next movie.
Red Sparrow.
Yeah, that's basically Black Widow.
Yeah, and you're right. It could be a good $40 million movie. Nice and simple, even maybe slightly less, but and you would still make a lot of money from it. I mean, I do agree on that aspect on those points. But anyway, I just want to get your thoughts on those two before we.
Yeah, sorry, that was long-winded way to say that I am definitely stoked about the directorial choice, but I hope
Freedom.
I hope there's the freedom to realize a vision.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Warner Brothers hasn't been great with giving their directors.
And I'm not saying they need to be an auteur. Like, obviously, this is a collaborative sphere where you have to work. There are a lot of moving parts, but it would be great if we could find some flavor of storytelling that can do something new for the comic book zeitgeist, can take some risks, and can hopefully still find some success with audiences. That would be really exciting to me.
Yeah. All right, let's quickly round up. Juan, what do you have on your channel currently, and what can we expect next week?
So we've got a bunch of things going on. My buddy TK and I are partnering up to do an Honor View 10 giveaway, courtesy of Honor UK. They shipped us out a phone. We're going to give it away. It's an international giveaway, and there's only 2 days left to jump on that bandwagon and get an entry into that contest. And I'm also getting to spend a little time with the View 10, so I think I'm going to do a little camera and audio review of it just because I haven't done one in a while. For Pocket Now, we just revisited the Lumia 1020 again. So Pocket Now saw my video on the 1020 and they wanted one of their own, so we did one of those. Newegg Now, last week, like I said, a whole episode dedicated to esports and competitive gaming, and it's pretty epic. We had an interview with the head of University of California at Irvine.
Cloud9? I'm just
No. Like, no, this is UCI. This is a legit college program.
Oh yeah, I remember they covered this on Vice or something before.
Oh right? God, guys, this is so cool. And so we had the director of their program on the show. Like, he was actually in our studio to talk about it. And like the infrastructure they've got, the lab, they've got like a competitive gaming arena lab where anyone can go and play, but they've got like, 60v60 tournament style competition locally hosted. Like, it's freaking epic. And you can go there just like cyber cafe style if you want to play. You don't need to be a student. I think it's like $4 an hour or something like that to play on like high-end competitive gaming hardware. My video is going to go live shortly after we're off the broadcast for my old phone challenge, which is this beautiful little HTC Touch Pro. I have the oldest phone in the old phone challenge. But I really enjoyed your guys's old phone video too. So that's on the old phone challenge playlist now. And so Erica Griffin, Damir Frank, a fantastic reviewer, Austrian. TK Bay has his video up. NBTYT88. Jacqueline, she's super cute because an old phone for her was the iPhone 6S because she's so young.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, I saw that.
She's adorable, guys. I'm serious. I am so excited to catch her channel because she's so young.
Can you just imagine what we started with and where we are?
So like the whole tone of her video too was like all these old guys are reviewing these unusable phones. This is an old phone, guys. It's the iPhone 6S. It's so adorable. And who else? Oh, Jason Lewis, Painfully Honest Tech, and obviously Erica Griffin did the original Galaxy Note. And so mine will be going up today, probably in the next 15, maybe 20 minutes is when it's going to publish and go live. So you can check out a 10-year-old Windows mobile phone on my channel. Coming up, sorry, I know I'm getting really long-winded, but I'm super excited about this. I finally have the Samsung Go Mic Mobile.
Okay.
So this is a portable wireless mixing audio solution for smartphones. And it comes with handheld and lavalier microphones. I'm about to break one of the lavaliers. So you actually have body pack lavalier microphones that connect to this tiny little receiver. This is one of the very first offerings from a major audio manufacturer to give mobile producers much better capabilities over controlling their audio. So I can connect 2 lav mics to this, have the audio fed directly into a phone, record in a very professional capacity. And I'm going to be using this for a couple of projects coming up, and then obviously doing a full review on this.
So this would take over from the V-Moto mic that you used for CES.
Yeah. So where is my my V-Mode is right over there, because I'm also reviewing like an Antlion, a little gaming headset mic. I finally won't look like a lost pilot walking around. But no, this is a really big deal. We praise really high quality video, but if you're trying to use your phone in a slightly more professional capacity, like say you want to do an interview, being able to clip this, I mean, it has little like mounts. You just clip it to the back of your phone, you turn it on, you click on two buttons, lav mics, you clip on a mic to someone, you have the interview, and it's all fed directly through this kind of interface, is a huge step forward for getting more professional output from our mobile gadgets, smartphones and tablets and stuff. So this has the potential to be a game changer, and I'm really excited to be spending some time with it.
Okay. Cool. On our end, we have our, of course, old smartphone challenge. We dropped on Thursday, myself and Sam, using the Galaxy S2. I used the HTC Evo 4G. Sam used the Galaxy S2, and watch the video and see our painstaking experience of using old phones. And then
it's not easy.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. We also have a video on how to get RGB lighting on your Galaxy S9 and S9 Plus. It is possible to have multiple colors on that edge screen. So definitely check that out if you're looking for that. And then in terms of audio, I dropped my review of this bad boy I've been using for a while. This is the SteelSeries Actors Pro. It comes with a DAC that has an ESS Sabre chipset in there, and it is, to me, a game changer for gaming headsets because I can actually listen to music off this thing. I tend to switch out headsets. It's just really good, and the mic, you guys can hear the mic yourself, so you know how that sounds. Daniel did the review of the wireless version of this headset, which works with PS4. So some people have asked, does this work with the Xbox One? It doesn't, because Microsoft has its own protocols. This works with the PS4 and the PC. And then finally, I did my reaction for Avengers Infinity War. You can check that out. I did some breakdown in the reaction, some things that we saw in there. So if you're up for reactions and seeing me early in the morning trying to react and feel surprised, I was surprised, but I don't think I emoted too well because it was early in the morning. So check that out. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much for watching the show, and I will be updating the podcast for both iTunes and Google Play. I know I didn't do that last week. I apologize. It's been a busy week, so we'll have both episodes 7 and 8 up by tomorrow. So thank you again. Check out all the channels. Mr. Warren Bowman, even though he's not here, at bw1.com. You can check him out on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook as bw1.com. And then Mr. Juan Bagnell, you can check out at Some Gadget Guy. That is his personal YouTube channel. Also, that is his handle for Twitter. And you can find him part of the Pocket Now Network, as well as Newegg. His show is Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern. And of course, you do have Mr. Black Iron _man, aka Sam. So Sam is not his real name. Just telling you.
Oh man, you're giving away his secret identity.
Yeah, you can follow him on Twitter. He's part of the Booredatwork network. That is his handle, and also on Instagram, his handle is also Black Iron _man. And myself, it is Bored at Work. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, as well as the website. Thank you very much, and always enjoy your entertainment.